Good morning, students. So, today we will discuss about the areas from where question basically asked in UPSC economics optional, that is advanced macroeconomics. If you follow the syllabus, then you will get something like this. Here, approaches to employment and income, interest rate determinations, classical Keynes IS-LML curve. That is classical versions as well as Keynes. Here there is no any mention about the approach of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. But you must keep in your brain one thing: in order to understand IS-LML, Keynes versions of aggregate demand and aggregate supply are to be understood very carefully. Apart from this, the syllabus mentioned here: new classical synthesis and new classical theories of interest rate and determination and interest rate structures. Okay. Now questions, you see here one question is asked in 2023. They explain the major difference between classical and Keynesian macroeconomics. So how this Keynesian's approach is different from classical point of view. Now let's discuss on this topic. So what is classical? Actually, this one classical and this one Keynesian. Now you see, classical, as per classical theory, total output, that is national income, is the functions of capital, stock of capital, and employment, number of person employed. This is the functions of output or national income. You can say Y is here indicating national income, or you can say GDP. On the contrary, Keynes said that this aggregate income, or you can say this income or national income, is equal aggregate demand. So what is aggregate demand? Aggregate demand has many numbers of components such as consumption expenditure, investment expenditures, government expenditure, as well as net export. So all are these the components which can boast in accelerating the aggregate demand. But here, as per classical, simply said, this output basically determined from supply side, not from demand side. One popular proposition is there, that is supply create its own demand, popularly known as Say's law. Now you see, in this case, when the number of employment will increase, stock of capital increase, technology, improvement of technology, this is how total output or national income can be accelerated. Now, in case of Keynes, you see, so aggregate or total output or national income can be accelerated only by boosting the components of aggregate demand. Now, very interestingly, you see, if there is lacking in any component, obviously this aggregate demand will fall. Due to the falling in aggregate demand, this output or national income will fall. So that is why, in order to overcome from depressed output level or national income level, government spending or government fiscal stimulus also help as per Keynes view. But classical model, total output or national income will enhance because of the technology improvement, capital stocks enhancement, number of employment. That is why these versions, actually what is happening here, Keynes version emerged after 1929. That is after depressions. So after economic depression, it was seen that national income had fallen drastically because of the lacking in aggregate demand, shortage of aggregate demand. That is why, in order to make the correction of economy, we can boost any components of aggregate demand in order to enhance the magnitude of aggregate demand. That is how economy can be corrected. So from this point of view, we can say that this Keynes version basically nothing. It is a short-term approach. It is a short-term approach. This is a short-term approach. On the other hand, as per classical model, in the long run, when we enhance the magnitude of capital stocks, when there will be the improvement in technology, as well as number of employment increase, this is how national income will be increased. This is the long run approach. Long run approach. This is a long run approach. This is fundamental difference between these two. Now come to one thing. As per classical view, this output actually determined by supply side. That is, total output is determined from supply side. Supply side. That is why it is said supply creates its own demand, which is popularly known as Say's law. That is, supply creates its own demand. But as per Keynes versions, this output is determined how? By demand side or by demand factors. Demand factors. Here demand means, so what is the aggregate expenditure, which is the sum of consumption, investment and government expenditure. This is one fundamental difference. Next, another thing we need to follow here, as per classical model, aggregate supply shows as vertical axis. As per classical approach, aggregate supply curve is a vertical approach. So vertical approach means this is how total employment, the situation, the economy basically characterized as full employment. This is aggregate supply. Now, what is the function of aggregate demand then? Say these are aggregate demand. Aggregate demand. Simply, when aggregate demand increase, it just increase the prices only. Only prices. So, due to the increase in aggregate demand, price might be rise. Price can increase. But in case of Keynes versions, this aggregate demand determine what output are to be produced. So that is why aggregate supply is horizontally shape, and this is how aggregate demand determine what output produce. Now here it simply indicated in case of classical, aggregate demand just determine what will be the price for what the economy produce. Try to understand here one thing. What will be the price for the output that the economy produce? That is the functions of aggregate demand in case of classical economy. On the contrary, in Keynesian versions, aggregate demand, more the aggregate demand here, more will be the output produced in the economy. So that is why you can say one thing, the price is flexible in classical model, but here Keynes you see the aggregate demand is flexible. This is the rule of aggregate demand. In case of classical is nothing. Rule of demand, what will be the price of output that the economy produce? This is the fundamental difference. Now, next come to the fourth point. In case of fourth point, we can see, you see here, the economy, the full employment exists in case of classical economy. Full employment exists. Full employment exists in the classical model. Full employment exists in the classical model. That is, demand for labor is equal demand for supply. So one thing you must remember here, full employment does not mean that all the workers are employed. It shows just the clear of labor market. That is, the demand is equating supply. That means when we talk about the full employment in classical model, we simply understand the labor market is cleared with the help of market forces, that is demand and supply. So what we see, if demand is greater than supply of labor, under this situation, wage will be rise. Wages will be rise. And again, if demand is less than supply, then wages will fall. But in case of Keynes did not agree. But Keynes did not agree with classical view of full employment. That is, as per Keynes, there is unemployment in the economy. As per Keynes, there is unemployment in the economy. Because it is observed after 1929 Great Depressions, where aggregate demand had fallen drastically, as well as unemployment rises very adversely. So that is why Keynes did not agree with the classical view of the full employment. As because another arguments presented by Keynes, that when demand for labor is less than supply of labor, wage cannot be fallen up to the sustainable level or subsistence level. ये हो नहीं सकता जो subsistence level तक wages गिर जाए, क्योंकि there is the wage law enacted by the government, and because of labor union participation is there also. So due to wage cannot be fallen due to the cannot be fallen to a very critical level or to a subsistence level because of the government's labor law, or you can say the participation of labor union. This is another fundamental difference between the classical and Keynesian. Now come to the another point. That is why we can conclude that this wages is flexible. Wages is flexible in Keynesian model. Sorry, in classical model. On the other hand, in Keynesian, wages is rigidity. Wages is rigidity. It can be understood very easily. Now questions are so already we have said supply create its own demand. What is the argument presented by classical economics in respect of this view? That is, supply creates its own demand. Let's try to understand exactly what it indicating. Now in order to produce anything, say X, factors are employment are to be employed, and that is why factors of employment or factors holder will earn money, and this entire money will be spent on goods what the economy produce. So in order to produce X commodity, many factors, different factors are employed. When different factors are employed, factors owner or household will earn the money, and that earning money will be spent on the good what the economy produce. So it simply said that classical economic, there is no leakage in the form of saving or investment or anything. So we can say the entire income what is earned by giving factor services are entire to be spent on the goods what the economy produce. So from this point of view, money function as a only transaction motive. That is, money demanded only for transaction motive, or you can say as a medium of exchange, as a medium of exchange. So as per classical view, money demanded because of their transactions motive. That is why money function only as a medium of exchange. But as per Keynesian, it may not be happened. What entire income that earned from giving factor services in the economy may not spend on the goods what they produce, because a part of their income may go for saving also. Then there will be leakage happened. When leakage there happened, so there will be creation of inventory stock. So inventory stock create हो जाएगा यहाँ पर. As because the entire incomes are not going to spend on the goods what the economy produce, simple thing. So that is why as per Keynesian, money is not demanded not only from the transaction motive but also speculative motive. Because people want to save their money for uncertain events that might be happen in their life. So that is why this is the natural tendency of human being to save something. So that is why there is a leakage. And this entire saving may be transformed to investment or may not be transformed investment. But main thing is, as per Keynesian, money is not only demanded from the transaction of point of view, but also speculative demand. That is why Keynes argued that money function not only medium of exchange, but also store of value. This is one fundamental difference between classical and Keynes. Next, classical dichotomy is there. Classical dichotomy. What is classical dichotomy? Actually, classical talk about two variables. One is real, another is nominal. One is real, one is nominal. Now, in order to understand real and nominal, say one worker is paid ₹100. So, it should be seen as per classical view, by this ₹100, how much units he can produce or purchase, he can purchase. So, there will be the measurement of real, not exactly nominal. So, then what will be the real? The real is, that is money, wages and divided by price. So, that is the real. Real means it is a money, wages, total wages earned and divide upon price. So, one worker, if paid some amount in the form of wages, say ₹100, by this 100, how much units can be purchased by that laborers? That is the real. But in case classical version, there is no such dichotomy explained here or experience. No such dichotomy was experienced or advocated by Keynes. These are the fundamental difference. Next, we will continue this class for detailed discussion on all the topics of classical as well as Keynes, and even I will discuss aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Okay, thank you.